Hi, I'm Corey and welcome to Creating with Scraps. Yesterday's Beyond the List video about how to use scraps outside of the list on the scrap busters that we did used a doily to make an insert, and I had a couple people say thank you because they have several doilies and they wanted to know a couple different ways to use them within their junk journals, and which got me thinking and went off on a tangent and started thinking about different ways I can use doilies. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there's many more ways than I've come up with. And there's probably a whole bunch of videos out there in YouTube land on how to use doilies in your junk journals, but I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole. So I just came up with a list of ways that I use them, and I thought I'd share that with you. So this should be a pretty quick video. Obviously, the first way is the way I shared yesterday in the Beyond the List video, where you can use it. You can use a doily to make a journal insert, and we did this one quickly yesterday. Once this is sewn into a journal like this, it has a pocket on the back side, and then a second pocket for a tag, and then a pocket excuse me, or a tuck spot in the front. So that was one way I shared yesterday, and today I've got 14 more ways, so 15 total that I've got here to share with you. Another way, and I'll show anything that, or I'll show you how I did anything that needs showing, but many of them are just very self-explanatory. Here is one where I just use the doily as an insert. So I've got an envelope for a larger journal, and before I glued this envelope together, I simply put a doily on the inside just to make it pretty. So as an envelope liner. Here is one. I don't have many of these, but I've got a couple that are really shiny, and I would never use these in my junk journal the way they are, simply because they're a lot bolder than I generally use. The back side could certainly be used and inked, and you could glue it down. But to use the metallic side, what I did here is that was a really shiny one. It was even shinier than that gold. And I just scuffed it up a little bit with some emery board, and I used alcohol inks on it. And so I could use this as a background or a border or something, just because I added the alcohol ink to it. So there's another thought for you. So alcohol ink. This one is probably one we've all seen many, many times, and it's a fold over pocket. And the beauty of this one is it uses a doily, and it can be folded over and used the front of the pocket, like I did, like I've got here, right? Or you can make it a back pocket, right, like this. And if you choose not to glue the bottom, then you can make it a belly band. So you've got, with one concept, you can use, obviously, doilies as belly bands in many different ways, but just with this fold over, you can use it as a front pocket, a back pocket, or a belly band. And I'll show you really quickly how I did it. Not because it's the right way, but it's just, maybe not as obvious as some of the others. So what I did is I took, this happens to be a craft colored doily, but you can use any doily you want. I generally ink them using a, if I'm going to ink it first, like the white doilies, I'll use a blending brush as opposed to a dome, simply because these are really soft bristles and it's less likely to tear the delicate doily than the little bit harder foam is. Just personal preference. Anyway, I fold it over, and it doesn't matter if it's 100% perfect, if it's 100% lined up, but I fold it over, and then I glue. And the reason I glue is to make this a little more stable, so I don't have to put a liner. Yesterday's video I showed using vellum or tracing paper as a liner, and somebody brought up, it was a great idea, could you trace it and put and glue it down to the whole thing? And absolutely you could, like a circle or something, to make the liner through the whole thing. But a lot of times you could, and it would probably work really well most of the time. But a lot of times when we fold these, we fold and fold, so sometimes the front and the back show. So depending on how you're using it, you just want to be careful. So I would glue all the way around and glue this next to each other, and then you just fold. Now, before you glue, I'm just wanting to share a couple thoughts or ideas with you. And then I glue, or I fold it in half, and then when I fold the arms in, or the flaps in, I fold them just under half, or roughly half, just under it. Now, if I had glued this down, like I said, I couldn't do this step. But if you were wanting to tuck it into the piece next to it, you wouldn't glue it. I don't think when it's all said and done that it looks, oops, I'm sorry, I was out of frame, I apologize. If you were wanting to tuck the right flap into the left flap or the left flap into the right flap, then don't glue the doily down on the sides. And that kind of gives you like a polished, finished look there. Because doily's so thin, I don't know that it changes the look that much. So if you had glued it down and you just, you know, if this whole thing were glued and then you put right and left or left and right and then glued this down, it really doesn't change the look that much. So again, you would just put glue along the bottom and along the bottom inside, and that would give you your pocket like we've got here, right? So the front piece, and then you can flip it over, right? And then you've got the back piece like we've got here. And again, if you were wanting to make it a pocket, you just glue a little bead, run a little bead of glue around the bottom. But if you were wanting to make it a belly band, you just leave it open. So it's really versatile, and it's a great way to use up doily, and it's you know, it'll go with many different themes in journals. So that is the fold over pocket front back and belly band, 4-way pocket wrap. And I did this, I don't know, a year or two in a fall journal, and it's really super simple, but it's kind of fun because it makes a fun pocket. Now on this one, I probably would cut a piece of tracing paper just a little bit smaller than this, just so whatever I tuck in my pockets doesn't stick inside those little the little insert cutouts of the doily. But I just fold it in half, and then this is a page insert, right? Just a blank page insert, and I put the doily right here on the page insert, and then I sew it in just like this. Just make it a simple bottom tuck. And then when I've got this in my journal as my insert, right? So then when I fold it over again, it's sewn in. Then I've got a 1, 2, 3, and 4. So folding the doily up over the bottom, or you could do it over the top if you wanted top tucks. It gives you 4 different tuck spots or little pockets in there. So, and that can work with just about any doily, rectangle or circular. So the 4 pocket wrap, and as a stencil, I have a couple doilies in colors that I probably wouldn't maybe use in my journals, but they make fabulous stencils. And I did this one rather than, you could do it obviously simply and just do like 1, 2, 3 or something, but I did it several different times to give myself, you know, I can use this as a journaling card or a pocket or even a background piece, but use the doilies as a stencil. And again, I generally use the brush as opposed to the foam dauber with the delicate doily, but either one will work. So there it is as a stencil. As a background, this one I used several different kinds of doilies, and then I just inked them up a little bit and I glued them onto my background, and then I made a little bit of a pocket on front with collage just to show you how you can zhuzh it up a little bit. But just, you know, combine a couple different ones and make it a background. And you can see here I cut off a bit, and I'll show you on the next one how I used those cut off bits. So doilies as a simple background. And here I used those off bits of doilies as a border. And, you know, I've got this whole big page. This is obviously a longer page for a bigger journal, but I used different doily and different offcuts of the doily and glued those bits down, and then I just sewed a piece of ribbon over the top to give it a kind of a finished look so that it's not hanging out there. Of course I could have done it along the edge as well, but I wanted to bring it in so so that you can see the doily bits, and it just makes a fun decoration, and it's a way to use up some of those bits. So there it is as a border. All right, heart doilies. I don't have many of these, but I thought this was kind of a fun way to use it. Now, did I create this? No, I'm sure someone somewhere has done it, and maybe I've even seen it. But I thought this was kind of a cool way to just do a simple page wrap on a doily. And I did, the one I did as my sample, I did back it with vellum or tracing paper. I think this is coffee dyed vellum, just because this one was a really, really thin doily. So, and I'll show you how I did it real quick. But anyway, I would just glue it down like this. you know, just right along the edge on the bottom and the side right here. And the same thing on this side. Glue it along the bottom edge and side, maybe not on an upside down page. And then you can do 1 or 2 pockets or tucks. You can make the back a tuck if you choose to. And I did the same thing here. And this is one of the samples where, oh, I glued it down, where if I had just made this circle on the back, then when I folded this over, it would have shown. So I made the covers, basically the whole covers, specifically for this one. And I did 2 on the outside and then 2 on the inside. So wrap it around my page, glue it down in place, and then I've got a back tuck and a front tuck. And then it's a wrap, a page wrap. So on the next side, I've got a back tuck and a front tuck. And all I did to do that, this was again a heart-shaped doily, and I folded the bottom of the heart-shaped doily to the center of the heart, right? And then I put a scrap or an offcut of coffee dyed tracing paper or vellum, what have you. I cut a scrap to fit in here so that when I've got this on the top, it won't catch the cards or journaling spots or what have you that I put in there won't catch. And then I flipped it over and did the same thing. I used again, I just lightly traced around the edges, cut it, and then glued it in place and folded it in half, just like that. And that is what made the page wrap. Super, super quick, super simple, but just kind of a little bit different twist on another way to use a doily. All right, simple pocket. I mean, and it's very, very simple. I just took a doily. This happens to be a, not canvas. What is this stuff? Oh, whatever this is, burlap. That's the word I'm looking for. I just took a piece of burlap doily and cut it and put a piece of coffee dyed vellum on the back and just folded it over. And then I would glue it down into my book just like this, and so that I could make it a tuck pocket like so, just like that. Okay. Simple pocket. An envelope top. So I had an envelope and it was kind of boring, and I just took one of the offcuts and glued a bit of the doily to the top. Just a way to use a scrap, and I can, you know, add more or less if I choose to. I could have made this with the whole envelope and taken a doily and wrapped the whole envelope, but I had just a little bitty bit. So I would take any standard regular envelope and then just glue the doily onto the envelope before I glued the envelope together. So I've opened a piece of paper to make an envelope, right? Glue the doily down and then just folded it like I would any other envelope, and with a doily on the top. So it has an envelope top. Dress as an accent. I've seen this in card making for years and years, and depending on the journal, I would probably use this in a junk journal as well. And it's really, really pretty easy to do. I, again, don't use colored doilies very often, so this might be a good way to use a colored doily. And the way you do it here, obviously with this one's more of a scalloped doily, but you can do the same thing. So I am going to fold it in half, and I just do it this way because I find it easier. So I'm going to lightly fold it in half, and then where I've folded it, I'm going to cut a divot. So I'm going to go right about to the center, and wherever I want the top of my dress to be, I'm just going to cut out a triangle. I'm just going to cut out a triangle, and that's going to be the top. And then I am going to refold it so that I'm not folding it in half this time. I'm just kind of giving it a layered fold look. So the bottom is a little bit longer than the top. And then I will wrap this piece that's not on top of that, right? The piece that's sticking out to the side, I guess, is a good way to put it. I'll bring that up and wrap it on top. So it almost kind of like makes a third layer, if you will. And I want to try to match this up so that it looks like the dress is complete, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so then I would do it something like this. Okay, and again, you can see it's not perfect, but that's okay. I'm going to trim right here, just a little section of that off. Now you could fold it back. I just trimmed it off because that's what I wanted to do. And then you glue this piece down in the back, And then you can put a piece of paper as a border. I used just a little bit of a ribbon, and that's all there is to it. You can use it as an accent, either on a card or a journaling card, or as a page accent, right along the border or something. So a little dress. And another way is a flower bouquet. So this one, I had some of these real long Tim Holtz flowers, and I just cut them into pieces, and used a doily to wrap like a flower bouquet. And it's every bit as simple as it looks. You just kind of fold it over at an angle, whatever size. Smaller doilies obviously work a little bit better here. And you fold it over so it's almost cone shaped, right? And then you wrap it and glue it. And then stuff your flowers inside and tie it with a bit of ribbon. And that might make a fun accent. I'd probably add, I used mounting foam to layer these just so there was a little bit of dimension. And I'd probably add some dots to the centers of this just to make the flowers a little more dimensional. So there you go, a flower bouquet. And then a frame. Now this one was kind of fun. I had this cluster for a while in my cluster bin, and this was a really pretty doily, a real intricate lacy doily. And what I did is I just cut out the center. I used my Creative Memories circle trimmer, but you could use a circle punch or any kind of circle cutter. And I cut out the center, and then I can use these circles for something else. But cut out the center, and then I used it as a frame to frame this cluster. And just kind of a fun, pretty page. I could have made this, if I chose to, a tuck or something, but maybe I would just leave it like this as a pretty card front, or just a real pretty page embellishment. Make a great pocket too. This would be the front of my pocket, but I would just use the doily as a frame. And last but not least, I used little bits on some different things. I used a little bit here just to make a journaling card. I used it kind of as a page embellishment. I used just a smidgen of it to wrap a piece of card, and then I can use this as a journaling card or just a tuck inside my journal, but I used it as a decorative element. Here I used it as a collage piece. So I had this leftover bit of a border collage that I made, or a quarter inch or half inch scrap collage that I made, and I just collaged a little bit of that doily right on top of it. And again, I can use this as a tag or a journaling card or a tuck spot or something, but I built it into collage. And then finally I used another little bit. Oh, that was still wet. Oops. Well, I used another little bit as, and then again, that's real shiny, so it's kind of glaring off there, but I used just a little offcut of it in a cluster. I love making clusters, and all these little bits, leftover pieces, make fabulous pieces inside of a cluster. Here it's just card and music and just a piece of, I think that's coffee dyed vellum, that coffee dyed vellum there, a bit of lace, a leftover piece from that bouquet that I made, and a little bit of a tag, and there is a cluster to decorate a page. All right, there you go. There are my ideas for 15 different ways to use doilies in your junk journals. I promise next video will be Stamperia Forest. Not sure when, maybe next week, but the tangent was a lot of fun and I enjoyed making this. Thank you for watching, and happy creating.